Welcome to Turning the Page, a Lexington Public Library podcast. I'm Mariam Adarat.
And I'm Erin West. If you love the library because of books, the programs, and the people behind both, then this is the podcast for you.
And even if you don't, there's still fun to be had. We will bring you the latest book releases that are worth checking out, figuratively and literally.
And we will discuss all of the happenings at the library to look out for.
And of course, what would a library podcast be without a special guest? We will get to know some special authors that are making an impact on our local literary scene.
Whether you're listening to us in your car while washing dishes or snuggled up with a warm drink, we are grateful for your time and hope you enjoy.
Our guest today is a North Georgia native, Beth Pride. Lucky for us, she's now a Lexingtonian, where she lives and writes on a thoroughbred breeding farm with her husband and 13 studs. A rewarding career in education and marketing led Beth in 2021 to begin writing full-time. In 2022, she published the nationally celebrated Commonwealth of Kentucky project with artist Kelly Brewer. Beth's debut novel, Back to Blue Holly, was released on January 2nd, 2025, and I'm so excited to talk to her about it today. Welcome to the podcast, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a newly published author. You do have another book before Back to Blue Holly, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But give us a little background about you. Did you grow up here in Lexington?
I did not grow up in Lexington. I feel like I did almost. I've been here since 1999. I'm from North Georgia, a small town called Rome, Georgia, which is actually sort of, one of the small towns in Back to Blue Holly called Three Rivers. It's based on that. And so I'm a North Georgia girl. I mean, it's in my heart and in my soul and inspiration for much of the setting of Back to Blue Holly.
Yeah.
When we moved here in 99, my husband is in the thoroughbred racing industry, horses. And so we came for that. And of course, I've been here now for longer than I was in North Georgia. But we have a home in North Georgia right down the street from my mother and in an area called Morganton, Georgia, right in central North Georgia. And so I'm kind of got two legs in two states, as is indicated by the content of the book.
Well, it's lovely to have you in Lexington. We are lucky to call you a Lexingtonian now.
Thank you.
You have a career in freelance writing and marketing. How did those two things contribute to your writing?
Well, and a little-known fact is that I started out as a teacher. I was an English teacher. I taught high school English for the first part of my career. My master's degree is in secondary English education. And so, I've always been a storyteller. I mean, even, as an English teacher, when you're trying to and also, let's just say, salesperson. You're trying to sell Shakespeare and Chaucer and, Beowulf to high schoolers. And so you're pitching it pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a pretty good background in what I needed to do. And then when we moved to Lexington, I actually stayed home with my kids for a little bit. And then when I went back to work, I went back as a part-time teacher, but actually went into administration into a school here in Lexington called the Lexington School. And I was there as the admission director, marketing director, and financial aid director for 18 years.
Wow.
And so that was the bulk of my career. And the marketing part was self-taught. It was one of those things that in 2008, all we advertised in was the phone book, pretty much. I mean, and then that's when Facebook started off and all that kind of stuff. And so very much an extension of storytelling is what marketing is. People think that it's advertising, but it's really storytelling. And, the writing was always a big part of what I was and wanted to do. And the marketing was just short form stories. Yeah. Even back in the day when, we were putting things on Twitter. It was like 140 characters back in the day. Yeah. Well, you had to tell a story in 140 characters.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, it is. But it's all, kind of connected. I mean, if you can draw someone into your story in, 200 words, then, by extension, you can hopefully draw someone into your story in 300 pages. Yeah. So it's just different, but definitely connected.
And so the 300 pages of Back to Blue Holly. Tell us a little bit about Back to Blue Holly. You said that the inspiration for it was your hometown area. So give us a little bit about Dottie and Back to Blue Holly.
Yeah. So Back to Blue Holly is it's set primarily in the North Georgia sort of Appalachian foothill region, which is very much in the center part of North Georgia, and it's in a lake town that's also, it's sort of a small town universal, where I loved that Whitney Collins, who's a local author, she reviewed it and said, it's small town and universal, which is really what I wanted.
Yeah.
It's also set in Kentucky, and the inspiration for the book, though, certainly was the setting. I mean, I've been going to this from there. My people are from their people. You know what I mean? Mom's side of the family, and the setting there is really unique. I mean, the people are not unlike people in Kentucky, but it's just a beautiful place, and there's a lot of funny stories and a lot of quirky people, and I wanted the setting to almost be a character in the book, and I'm such a person of nature that I really believe that, we are influenced by the places where we come, from where we come. And so I wanted the setting to be kind of a character in that way.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because we've had other Kentucky authors, and that seems to be the theme in Kentucky writing is the setting, the place is very much a part of the story and how you tell it. So the Kentucky is definitely influential in your writing.
Yeah. And not only that, but another inspiration for the story wasn't just the place, but also the theme that was really prevalent in my Commonwealth of Kentucky project experience. And so that was the last book that I wrote, and it's nonfiction, and it's an art and kind of culture book that I did with artist Kelly Brewer, who's a local, very gifted artist, and also happens to be one of my best friends.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Thank you. Yeah. Very proud of that. That was a life-changing experience, and really the theme of that book, it was post-COVID, sort of post-election, and we were very much looking for trying to show the connection between people. And so we traveled all over the state, and everywhere we went, people are different. They think differently. They are from different backgrounds. But what we found was no matter where we were, who we were talking to, you can understand someone's perspective if you just listen.
Yes. And I love the QR codes
in
that book, and listening to the different subjects tell their stories. People like Pamela Goodwine, and I just never knew her background story. Luann Redcorn was another fascinating person. Just so many fascinating people across our state. Just beautifully done, the artwork, the story, the written story, and the interview that you guys did. So it was an incredible project. So you guys should be proud of it.
We really were. And so many of those stories inspired characters and stories in Back to Blue Holly. And, there's nothing that's exact, right? I mean, everything's fictionalized. But for sure, there's going to be a familiarity to someone who knew all of the people that we talked to and all of the different stories. I mean, just one tiny example I know she wouldn't mind me saying is one of the women that we covered was she's from Western Kentucky, and she grew up farming in Western Kentucky in the River Flats. And that's a geographic area that I'm unfamiliar with. And so every person we talked to, I learned so much. And one of the things she said when she was telling us her story is she said, I grew up and it would flood, and we would be in the field in a john boat. And, the corn stalks would be coming up from beneath the water. And I remember saying to my mother, Mom, the river's going to do what the river's going to do, and that's in Blue Holly. Back to Blue Holly.
That statement.
I use that statement because I love it. It's just you can't control everything, and certainly Dottie, who is the young character in Back to Blue Holly. She really feels absolutely no control over her life when she gets to Blue Holly. And, asking about the inspiration, she is a millennial girl, not my generation. So I drew upon people I know who were millennial women when I was trying to write her dialogue, and when I was thinking about who she was and how she would respond to different, things in her life. Different situations. But she is coming back to her childhood sanctuary where she's grown up from Louisville, where she has lived and spent a decade in a pretty bad marriage, and she's had some hard times. And so she's coming back to try to get her
life together.
And she thinks that her aunt's going to help her, the gallery job, and she gets there, and her aunt has had her own issues with the Citizens Against Virtually Everything and Fannie Fraser and some of the quirky small town folks. And
there are a lot of quirky stories in this book, a really funny kind of, very heartwarming, some tough subjects that you discuss in the book, but the funny and the humor is very strategically placed to relieve some of that. And a lot of it is about community. And that's, a life lesson that especially women can take, that, when times get rough, we lean on our community, we lean on people to help us, and that's okay. So how has community contributed to your life or your writing?
Yeah, so for me, and it was another theme that came from the Commonwealth of Kentucky Project. And in particular, there was one story about a man who had a very hard time. And his community, his Lexington community, happened to be his church community, saved him. They took him and embraced him, and everything about him was against what he thought they were for. Yeah. But they really, and so there were so many stories like that. And then, of course, my own experience growing up, and it's not just Southern, right? I mean, everyone has a community. But in particular, I mean, even just the experience I've had while writing Back to Blue Holly, I mean, the writing community is phenomenal. And this is something, I've been in marketing, I've been freelance writing. I've had my school communities always, but the writing community is made up of the most generous, giving, encouraging, supportive people. Yeah. And I've made so many new friends. There's no sense of competition in this community. It's really interesting. Yeah. I know that you have probably felt that.
We have. I mean, we get, and in our line of work, we get to encounter a lot of local authors. It is something that I have noticed, especially in this current position that I'm in, how much of a supportive community it is. When one makes it, they reach out and pull the other one up. And I've definitely noticed that in meeting local authors, people like Crystal Wilkinson's, like David Arnold, Sean Pryor, yourself. It is a very tight-knit community, and it's really, really encouraging to see that.
It really is. And now, I mean, I know sort of this pay it forward and then pay it back thing. Yeah. I mean, even local authors like Cynthia Ellenson and Whitney Collins, and they just, you want to go have coffee? Yeah, let's do that. What did you do? And they're like, well, this is what I did. And they both read my book. Cynthia especially was super helpful on the front end. And then, I've reached out to Patty Callahan Henry, who is a really big author, Southern author out of Birmingham, and she's been the same way. So gracious. I mean, I don't know her. I've never seen her in real life, but we've become friends just by on the telephone and stuff like that. And so I've just loved that.
That is so lovely and endearing to hear. I actually want to know if you are writing anything right now, and what can we expect in the future after Back to Blue Holly?
I am writing something right now. In fact, I came here from writing, which is why I'm a little bit googly-eyed. I get in the tunnel. I can't quite get out of it, So I'm writing. It's funny. Since I wrote Back to Blue Holly, I had no idea how people were going to respond to it. It's not really a genre-specific book. I mean, as you know, and that's part of the reason I self-published it, because I had a commercial publisher who very much loved it, but she said it's just not quite commercial enough. So I learned a lot that way. I wouldn't change it. I mean, I like it the way it is. But I've had people, I wasn't sure how they were going to respond, who want a sequel.
Yeah, like I want to know what happens to Dottie after.
And so I get so tickled because I'm like, the sequel is not in my head right now. Definitely I'm starting to churn on it a little bit because, give the people what they want. But right now I'm writing a book, which is, the working title is Horsewomen. And it's women's fiction, just like Back to Blue Holly, where, you've got a woman protagonist or two who are working together in some way to kind of, there's a journey, there's transformation, empowerment, et cetera. And in this case, again, it's a little quirky. I've got a mother-daughter duo, and the mother, I don't know if y'all ever saw the movie Bull Durham with Susan Sarandon. It's older. Yeah. She's, what I'm talking about? She's really quirky. So the mom is kind of like Susan Sarandon and Bull Durham, except they are NASCAR groupies, okay, who find themselves in Lexington. They are in central Kentucky. I don't hide that fact. On a big horse farm that the daughter's husband has bought because he's a car dealer, and car dealers actually love the horse industry because they love auctions and they love risk. And it's just, there are a lot of car dealers in the horse industry, for real. And so anyway, he dies mysteriously, little mystery, intrigue. And she ends up with this farm and she has no idea what to do
with it.
Yeah. And it's highly leveraged. Yes. And so she's got nothing. Like, she's got to make a go of it. She and her NASCAR mom. And so It's about what happens from there. So
this is exciting. We have a fun book to look forward to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So on that, if you don't mind reading a little excerpt from your book. To
had a little bit of a hard time finding one without any language in it.
That's okay. We don't mind a little language.
Well, it's okay. I think, so I do have a section, 3 minutes also. Okay, so a little context. Dottie has just figured out that she is going to try to make a go of it in Blue Holly.
Yeah.
And she knows that her aunt is leaving her.
Yeah.
She is on the pontoon boat and just trying to get a little fresh air. And she is just kind of spinning, you know. But so she's been spinning. She's been very upset. She's got these nerves that she deals with and all that.
It's like the rug is being pulled out from under her.
Exactly. Yeah. But she's on the boat, and this is again kind of back to setting and how impactful it can be in terms of how it's a character, you know. So I pushed down on the throttle and sped across the vacant lake. The sharp air stung me awake. I kept right like I've remembered. I saw the turtle-shaped island and slowed the boat to consider my options. Right or left? There was a 50-50 chance. When in a labyrinth, go left, they say. So I did, and left again and again until there were no more lefts left. So I took an arbitrary right and laughed at myself. You've got no clue, Dottie. I kept the throttle engaged, warming my coat, and I pulled the tie from my hair, letting it blow long behind me and tangle without care. I took a deep sip of the sweet water and air, and I smiled at Miller, whose ears bounced and flapped in the wind. A fluttering filled my chest. I questioned it. Nerves? Another deep breath in, and more fluttering. No, not nerves, but something else, like the bubbles at the Red Arrow when Lowe first told me. Like silliness. It felt like flying, like I could fly. I laughed out loud again, and Miller, worried I'd lost it, came and sat next to me. And then I recognized it, the feeling, like I'd just opened the window and saw it standing on the sidewalk, begging to come in. I was no Jay or lawyers or Linda, not even Lowe or my mother. Alone? I hated alone. But suddenly, alone felt like free. This is what free felt like. Beholden to no one? The wind, water, and Miller accompanied me as I drove without clear destination. Yet I was not lonely. I was alone, but not lonely. I was liberated, free. Free to make a complete mess of it or turn it all around with no one to blame or take the credit. For the first time since I could remember, it was me. I turned off the boat in a place without houses and rested my head on the cushioned bench. I floated and breathed and searched for reminders of where I was, squinting through the sun to study the sky and the tops of trees for anything that stood out, that was permanent and immovable. I needed more than breadcrumbs to find my way back to the best feeling I'd known since I could remember. When the bird flew over, its wingspan was as big as a kite. Without flapping once, the eagle glided across the quiet cove and grabbed a limb at the top of an ancient hemlock, settling onto it. I almost laughed, it was so cliché, a bald eagle at that very moment. I knew they inhabited the forest around the river and lake, but I had never seen one in real life. The white head was stark and fierce atop its charcoal, feathered breast. I closed and reopened my eyes to focus. It looked just like the pictures. Below its perch was a dark cone-shaped form, a giant V at the top of the tree with a mouth as wide as a queen-size bed. That's his nest, I said aloud, and then held my breath, scanning the cove for others, waiting to see if it would fly away, and begging my brain to remember this exact place, just in case it wasn't a dream.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
That's a good selection.
Good.
Dottie, I think in that part is when she kind of realizes, okay, I've got this, and I'm going to have a go at it.
It's the first time, but not the last.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Beth. We are so excited to see what else you have coming in terms of your writing.
Thank you.
It looks like you have a lot in store, so.
I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This month, I'm reading, along with Beth Pride's book, Back to Blue Holly. I'm almost done with that one. I received an ARC called Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, and this is a British author.
Ooh.
This book is set in a farm town in England, and it's about a main character. Her name is Beth, and her gentle, kind husband, Frank. They're happily married, but their relationship kind of relies on the past being buried.
Oh.
So Beth's past, like she was, kind of in love with another man, and he comes back into her life. So this story's kind of sort of a love triangle, but not really, but also a murder mystery. So, and it's really good. So Beth is basically kind of pulled back into Gabriel's life, her ex, and kind of tensions around the village rise and dangerous secrets kind of come up to the surface, and so I'm excited to read it. I started to read like a few chapters of it, and I'm hooked. So I'm excited about this one. It comes out in March 4th.
Oh, great. Does it feel like, Midsummer Murders, those, BBC
Sort of,
mysteries? Or does it?
It's more like contemporary than that, but it's really good. It's a little more dramatic, I guess you can say, and intense, but I love it. And, of course, English Countryside.
Yes.
You can't go wrong with that one.
No, definitely
The next one, actually, I was surprised to hear today that it was picked as a Good Morning America book club pick. It's called Junie by Aaron Crosby Eckstein. It's a historical fiction set in Alabama. And it's about a 16-year-old girl who's enslaved since she was born. Her name is Junie, and she spent her life on a plantation in Alabama. And she kind of daydreams about being a poet and having a life outside of course, slavery and off of the plantation. When wealthy guests arrive from New Orleans hinting at marriage for Violet and upending Junie's life, Violet is the person that she's caring for, the master's daughter. Okay. She commits a desperate act, one that rouses Minnie's spirit from the grave. Minnie is her sister who has passed away, and she is Minnie's spirit from the grave and then tethered to this world unless Junie can free her. So she enlists the aid of Caleb, the guest's coachman, and their friendship soon becomes something more. Yet as long-held truths begin to crumble, she realizes that Bellarine, which is the plantation that she's living on, is harboring a dark and horrifying secret that can no longer be ignored. With time ticking down, Junie begins to push against the harsh current that has controlled her entire life. As she grapples with an increasing unfamiliar world in which she has little control, she is forced to ask herself, when we choose love and liberation, what must we leave behind? And this is and I believe it's set just as the Civil War is breaking out.
Okay.
I love historical fiction, as I think I've mentioned a few times on this podcast. So I was excited that Good Morning America chose that book as well as for a book club read. So
for sure.
I'm on hold on it. Yes, I am the collection services manager, but I still have to be on hold for books like everybody else. But yeah, so be on the lookout for those two in March.
Both of those sound really good.
So what's going on at the library?
So what is going on here in March? So March 21st is Gallery Hop at Central.
Oh, fun.
So that's at 5. It goes till 8. There's going to be many other locations downtown. It's the traditional walk around, see all of the art downtown. Then we've got It's a Square Dance, also on March 21st in Central as part of Gallery Hop. So you can come and watch the square dance.
Nice.
Happening.
Art and dancing. Nice.
Yeah. The following day, on Saturday, March 22nd at 2 at Beaumont, there is a second civics workshop with Civic Lex on the Lexington city budget. So you can come and learn more about how the budget is made, what goes into it, things like that. And that is a very busy Saturday. So at the same time, just about at 3 o'clock, there's Hooked on Books. Feminist Theory is the theme. So Hooked on Books is Beaumont's book club that has no specific book that you read, but is instead themed. Yeah. So just bring what you've read on topic and be able to discuss it with other folks that have read something different than you. Yeah. Saturday, March 29th at 2 in the Farish Theater, there is a talk with Jennifer Kramer about the myths and realities of Appalachian English.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's going to be a really interesting talk because a lot of times you hear that the Appalachian accent and the way the words that people use are very much left over from 17th and 18th century British English. Yeah. So she's going to talk about that and talk about what the vernacular actually became after that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that'll be an interesting one.
Yes. And then this one, we're going to go just a little bit into April. For Sunday, April 6th at 3, also in the Farish Theater, is Dawning of Music in Kentucky. It's another of the music series for the 250 Lex. And it's music by Anthony Philip Heinrich, Lexington's own Beethoven of America.
Yeah.
So that'll be really nice to go to.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Exciting stuff happening at the library.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to Turning the Page. If you enjoyed listening, there will be more to come. So please give us a follow so that you don't miss the next episode.
We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.